we know is the distance from 0, right? So it's absolute value. If you take the absolute value of a single number, it's always positive, that sort of thing. Okay, so you up to this point have had to go, okay, absolute value of 12, and then it's 12, right? How far away from 0 is it? You have done other single numbers, like absolute value of a -8. How far is it away from 0? 8. It's a positive value. So if there's a single number inside our absolute value bars, it's always positive. Okay, you've been doing that for a long, long time. All right, and then in algebra 1 and algebra 2, we bumped you up to stuff inside. Okay, so if I put something like a -4 plus an 8 on the inside of the absolute value bars, well, then you knew what? I have to add, subtract, multiply, divide, simplify what's on the inside first. So -4 plus 8 is 4. And then once you get down to the single number, then you can say, okay, absolute value of 4 is 4. Okay. Now compare that. What if I wanted to compare that to the absolute value of a -4 plus the absolute value of an 8? All right. These two problems are not the same. Over here, the absolute value bars are around the whole thing. Over here, they're around each individual number. So on this one, because it was around the whole thing, I did the math on the inside, then I took the absolute value. These have a single number on the inside, so I'm just going to automatically take the absolute value first. So absolute value of -4 is 4. Absolute value of 8 is 8. And when I add, I get 12. Okay, so again, it's a little bit of order of operations for absolute value. All of this is the review part. Okay, so are we good with the review part? Okay, now let's take a look at what they're now going to ask you to do. They're going to ask you to do a little bit of thinking. Let's suppose they did the absolute value of the square root of 5 minus 2. All right, now they're not going to want you to grab a calculator. All right, they're going to want you to find the absolute value of this without the use of a calculator and without getting a decimal answer. Okay, now to do this, let's stop and think about what we did over here a minute ago. We took the absolute value of 12 and we got 12, right? So in other words, when I'm doing this, I had a positive value on the inside, right? Because 12 is positive, and it spit out a positive value. Okay, we all good with that? That makes sense. Okay, now when I took the absolute value of the, what did I do? I did -8 a minute ago. Then it gave us the positive value, right? As a final answer. So this is taking the absolute value of a negative answer, of a negative number, but yet we get a positive answer. How can I take a -8 and turn it in legally, turn it into a positive 8? Isn't a negative times a negative positive, right? So if I know what's on the inside of the bars, then it's a -8. Well, if I just multiply it by -1, then I get my positive 8 answer. So when I have a negative on the inside, to get the right answer, I need to take whatever's on the inside times the -1, because that will work every time. All right, this is kind of like using problems that you already know what the answer to figure out what I need to do here. Okay, now, so my goal here would be to ask myself, do I have a positive number inside here, or do I have a negative number inside here? All right, now, maybe or maybe not, you may or may not know what the square root of 5 is off the top of your head. All right, it's roughly what, about 2.2? Think about some number times itself equaling 5. Okay, so if you didn't, you could use a calculator to get this estimate. All right, so if I'm going to estimate that, it's roughly a 2.2. All right, well, 2.2 minus 2, is that going to be a positive number or a negative number? 2.2 minus 2? It's going to be positive. So I'm taking the absolute value right here. I'm taking the absolute value of a positive number. Well, when we took the absolute value of a positive number, we just got whatever that positive number was, right? We got whatever was on the inside. So that means the answer to this is square root of 5 minus 2. I just got to write the exact same thing down. It was positive. When you take the absolute value of a positive number, you have a positive answer. Okay, so think a little bit about what's inside here and make a determination. Is it positive or is it negative? If it's positive, you write the exact same thing down. Okay, now, if it is not positive, then it's going to have to be negative. All right, so like let's do absolute value of 1 minus pi. All right, well, we all know what pi is, right? Pi is 3.14. All right, so if I do 1 minus 3.14, is that a positive number or negative number? It's going to be negative, right? So I'm trying to take the absolute value of a negative number. Anytime I take the absolute value of a negative number, I take what's inside the brackets and I multiply it by -1. And it's going to give me the right answer. So doing a little bit of work here, I'm going to take what's on the inside of the brackets. I'm going to memorize the fact that I need to multiply by a -1. All right, -1 times 1 gives me a -1. -1 times negative pi gives me a positive pi. So basically what happened to each of the signs? They just switched between positive to negative. Okay, they just switched. This was a positive, but it became a negative. This one was negative, it became positive. Okay, they don't want decimal answers. They don't want you to grab a calculator and get the actual decimal for this and then subtract 2 and then write down that great big long decimal. They want the answers in the terms of what you see inside there, because they're just wanting you to think about absolute value. All right, so this is the step up. Okay, you didn't do this type of thing in algebra 1 and algebra 2. You did more straightforward concepts with absolute value. So now they want you to think a little bit. Okay, all right, are we good there?